The distress call drifted through the void like a dying whisper, a thin and fragile pulse of desperation escaping from a forgotten world on the edge of the Perseid expanse. It wasn't meant to be heard by anyone. Its creators barely believed salvation existed anymore. Their cities had been scorched, their skies darkened by the shadows of invading war fleets, and their leaders had retreated beneath the ground, counting the hours until extinction found them. No one listened. No one cared. No one responded, until something did, far beyond mapped space, past the abandoned hyperlanes and the silent graves of civilizations long crumbled. The signal brushed against a sensor lattice that should not have been active. A dormant array flickered, ancient systems warming like forgotten embers, and across a region believed uninhabited, something awakened, massive, deliberate, alive. For the first time in centuries, the Deathworlder registry sparked to life, highlighting a single message in violent red: civilian distress signal, priority human. The galaxy had forgotten what that meant. Inside an observation chamber the size of a starport, deep beneath a storm-shattered moon, rows of long silent command consoles ignited, lighting metallic walls with harsh white and gold. A figure stepped forward, armored, scarred, unmistakably human. Their breath fogged the cold air as they stared at the pulsing signal. One message. One plea for mercy. One cry that demanded an answer. Across the chamber's vaulted ceiling, enormous engines hummed awake, sending tremors through the moon's fractured crust. Dust fell from the ceiling in soft cascades, but the machinery roared louder, surging with purpose, determination, and fury. Humanity's remnants had been quiet for too long, forced into the shadows, torn apart by wars the galaxy never recorded. But they had survived. They always survived. And now, they had been called. Deep in the void, an armada began to stir. Ships that dwarfed dreadnoughts shook off centuries of silence. Drone forges activated with the shriek of steel and plasma. Shield arrays warmed like old bones cracking back into place. Engines once capable of ripping holes in reality coughed, sputtered. And then burned brighter than suns. The galaxy had grown arrogant in their absence. They had built empires on the assumption that Earth's children had vanished forever. But Deathworlders were not myths. They were storms wearing skin. They were persistence shaped into flesh. They were humanity, scarred, weary, furious, and they had heard someone crying for help. The first ship rose from beneath the moon, its hull shimmering with layers of refractive plating, every edge sharp enough to slice shadows. It drifted upward, gathering light, casting a spear-shaped silhouette across the shattered horizon. Around it, more followed, frigates. Cruisers, carriers, vessels with unknown names and forgotten histories. An entire fleet ascending like ghosts returning to the realm of the living. A single call for help had reached them, and humanity was done hiding. The fleet accelerated into the dark, engines igniting a trail of blue fire that cut across the silent void. Each ship moved with a precision that felt more like instinct than engineering, an ancient reflex baked into the bones of a civilization born from storms, chaos, and extinction events. As the armada formed into a spearhead, a quiet gravity settled over every bridge, every cockpit, every command deck. Humanity was not marching to war. Humanity was answering a plea. The navigational maps recalibrated themselves as the distress signal sharpened, showing its origin like a bleeding wound in the dark. A small world, barely charted, surrounded by debris fields and scattered colony ruins. Too far from any trade route for help to arrive by chance. Close enough to hostile territory to become a convenient target. The kind of world preyed upon because no one important would ever intervene, but now, someone was intervening. Someone the galaxy had once feared far more than they remembered to. On the flagship, a vast chamber opened like the iris of a great eye, revealing the star-wrapped horizon. Commanders in charcoal armor studied the projected battlefield. The invaders were still present. Stationed in orbit around the desperate planet, draining resources, culling survivors, crushing resistance. Their ships were sleek, numerous, and freshly constructed, an occupying force that considered itself unchallenged, unstoppable, ordained. they did not yet know what was coming for them. As the human fleet accelerated, the void vibrated with the hum of charging weapons, railstorms, gravitic warheads, point singularity lances. Systems once tested against cosmic beasts and machine apocalypses reawakened with unrestrained elegance. Even the smallest escort ship radiated enough firepower to break a moon, and still, there was no rage in the heart of the armada. Only resolve. A heavy, unshakable resolve shaped by centuries of loss and endurance. Humans had rebuilt themselves into something leaner, quieter, more focused. The galaxy had mistaken this silence for extinction. Sensors lit up across the fleet as they approached the occupied world. Alien ships drifted lazily in orbit, unaware, their attention locked on the planet's surface. They had grown comfortable. They had grown slow. They had grown blind, but the humans arriving through the dark were anything but. The first ripple of warp distortion fractured the starfield, bending light into sharp crescents. Then another. And another. Dozens. Hundreds. The human fleet erupted into real space like thunder given form. The invaders froze. Their sensors wailed in alarm. Their crews scrambled across bridges. Their captains screamed contradictory orders. The sky above the occupied world turned into a horizon of steel and vengeance. No warning, no negotiation, no hesitation, because humanity had not come to bargain, they had come to stop suffering, and the galaxy would soon remember what it meant when Deathworlders answered a call for help. The journey through the mountain spine of Caldor 4 unfolded like a fever dream of alien geology and ancient, dying wonders. As the Asterion carved through the upper reaches of the dust storms, the crew watched the world below shift from shattered mesas into a labyrinth of crystalline ridges. Lightning flared inside the storm clouds like trapped spirits trying to claw their way out. Every few minutes, the ship shuddered as if the planet were trying to shake it loose. Arden stood at the forward viewport, hands locked behind his back, eyes reflecting the storm fire churning beneath them. He felt it now, an almost painful certainty, that they were flying straight toward the origin of the cosmic distress signal that had rattled half the galaxy, a single call for help. From a world that by all measures should have been silent for eons, when the first tremor hit, it felt less like turbulence and more like the planet speaking through the metal, a vibration, a pull, a beckoning. The team gathered at the console as an impossible shape emerged from the blinding sand haze below. A canyon, unnaturally perfect, a needle-straight scar carved as though by a cosmic blade, waited beneath them. The ridges around it were etched with complex spirals, each one larger than a city, each one humming at a frequency the human ear could almost feel but not quite hear. The cavern descended so deep it swallowed the ship's floodlights. Sensors refused to map it. Scanners kept returning blank data, as though the place existed outside geometry itself. Then the hum intensified, the signal, ancient, fractured, desperate, rose again from the abyss, so powerful it vibrated through their teeth. Human hearts stuttered. Metal groaned. Lights flickered, yet in that violence, Arden sensed something else, not hostility, not warning, a plea so old it had worn itself into near silence. They descended, the canyon opened into a subterranean cathedral big enough to cradle a megacity. Tower-sized glyphs glowed along the cavern walls, pulsing like the heartbeat of some sleeping titan. Rivers of molten crystal flowed in patterns that looked deliberate, as if engineered rather than geologic, and in the very center of the impossible chamber floated a sphere the size of a shuttle. It was cracked. Dim, bleeding faint motes of light like a dying star, the artifact, the origin of the call. Arden stepped closer as the sphere responded to him, only him. With a faint pulse that spread across the ground like a ripple of recognition. Humanity was not supposed to be here, no species should have understood technology this ancient, and yet the artifact reacted as if it had been waiting for them specifically. Dr. Celine whispered, half in awe, half in fear, that the sphere was not a transmitter at all, it was a mind. A fragment of a civilization so advanced that its memory alone could shake galaxies, and that mind was dying. The sphere cracked again, a splintering shudder that sent waves of energy echoing across the cavern. Massive glyphs dimmed. The rivers slowed. The light inside the sphere flickered like a candle guttering in its final breath. Arden reached out, the sphere reached back. In an instant that tore through every neuron in his skull, he saw it, planets burning, empires collapsing, worlds kneeling in fear as something unimaginably vast swept across the galaxy ages ago. A catastrophe so total the stars themselves seemed to dim. The ancient ones had tried to fight it. They had failed. But in their last breath, they had hidden something. Something only a species foolish and defiant enough to challenge the impossible could ever hope to wield. A message formed in Arden's mind, trembling, fading, struggling to survive long enough to be understood. We chose you. The cavern trembled. Rocks cracked. The sphere dimmed further. Whatever the ancient mind had left was nearly spent. Arden staggered back, gasping, heart hammering as the visions seared themselves into memory. Humanity had not answered a simple SOS. It had been summoned, selected, entrusted, and somewhere in the dark, something older than empires had just awakened to their arrival. He steadied himself, voice low, breath shaking. We're not alone down here. And the cavern responded with a distant rumble, slow, deliberate, unmistakably alive. The rumble rising from the cavern floor felt too measured, too deliberate to be mere shifting stone. Dust cascaded from the ceiling in shimmering sheets as if gravity itself were trembling. The humans braced instinctively, yet Arden could not tear his gaze from the artifact, its dimming glow stuttering like a heart struggling against death. The sphere shivered once more. A pulse radiated outward, weak but intentional, washing over the team like a fading breath. It illuminated the cavern's carvings in a final desperate flare. Then the chamber fell into near darkness, but not silence. From the depths of the abyss, something enormous began to emerge. A metallic limb, articulated with notches the size of hangar doors, scraped upward through the gloom. Then another. And another. Their surfaces gleamed like ancient alloy kissed by starlight. The ground vibrated as each massive appendage anchored itself, pulling a colossal shape into view, a titan, forged before humanity had even tamed fire. It rose slowly, like a mountain waking, layers of armor unfolded like petals of a mechanical flower, revealing a towering construct easily 300 meters tall. Its core glowed faintly with the same fading light as the artifact, as if the two were fragments of one dying consciousness, and in its chest burned a single fractured lens, an eye of impossible architecture, cracked and bleeding photons. The sentinel, the last guardian of the ancient civilization. Arden felt its attention like gravity pressing against his lungs. Not hostile. Not yet. But desperate. Wounded. Running on embers of power left from a civilization erased by time. Celine whispered that the sentinel was likely never meant to wake again, not until a signal was answered. Not until the correct species stood before it, not until them. The titan lowered itself to one knee, the tremor nearly knocking the humans off their feet. The sound reverberated with a resonance that spoke directly to bone. Its cracked lens rotated, focusing fully on Arden, then the cavern lit with streams of ghostly energy as old conduits ignited, painting the colossal chamber in pale blue light. He felt the message before he heard it, not spoken in words, not transmitted through sound, but pushed straight into his mind through the lingering thread the sphere had created. A warning, a timeline, a truth so catastrophic the breath caught in his chest. Humanity had been contacted not because they were special, but because they were the last possible option left. Not even the ancient empire had been strong enough to face what was coming. The sentinel's voice, if it could be called that, shuddered through Arden's mind like thunder dragging broken chains. The Devourer wakes, a shape formed in the vision it projected. Dark, starless, formless yet vast, roiling. With tendrils of anti-light. Something that fed on civilizations, on energy, on the very fabric of spacetime. Something older than the ancient architects by eons. Something the universe itself seemed unwilling to acknowledge. The sentinel had been one of many barriers built to hold it back. Now only one remained, cracked and fading. Humanity had been chosen because they evolved in a place the Devourer never searched. A backwater death world spiraling around a benign star. A world so unlikely to produce advanced life that no cosmic threat ever bothered to look there, and humans had survived everything thrown at them. They were chaos, they were stubbornness incarnate, they were unpredictable where the ancient species had been precise, exactly what the Devourer could not anticipate. Arden staggered as the visions ripped free, leaving him pale and trembling. The sentinel moved again, slower now, its internal lights flickering. It reached toward the artifact, its creator's last remaining shard, and touched it gently. The sphere cracked fully, collapsing into dust-like particles that drifted upward and dissolved into faint motes of light, a whisper of a civilization's final breath. The Titan turned its shattered lens back to the humans. It projected one final message, the location, coordinates etched into Arden's vision like burning silver, the place where the ancient empire had hidden their last weapon. The only thing they believed could wound the Devourer, but the Sentinel's energy plummeted. Its massive limbs trembled. The cavern darkened again, the last remaining conduits sputtering one by one. It was dying, and with it, the last guardian separating the galaxy from oblivion. Arden shouted for the team to fall back as cracks raced up the Sentinel's limbs. Celine pulled the data drives. Lyra triggered emergency exfil protocols. The ground buckled, the Titan managed one final movement, bowing its massive head toward humanity in something that looked shockingly like respect. Then its core failed, a shockwave of ancient energy ripped outward as the Sentinel collapsed, vaporizing stone and sending molten fractures spiderwebbing through the cavern. The humans sprinted for the dropship as the world began to fall apart behind them, the dying Sentinel's collapse echoing through the abyss like the end of an age. They barely made it into the air, and as the Asterion tore upward through the storm, Arden felt the coordinates burning inside him. The galaxy's last hope lay hidden at the edge of a dead star's shadow, and the Devourer was already stirring. The Asterion drifted through the quiet between stars, its engines humming with a tension that mirrored every soul aboard. The universe outside looked peaceful, cold nebulae glowing like suspended storms, distant suns burning like lanterns in a forgotten sea. But the weight of the Sentinel's dying message pressed against Arden's mind with suffocating gravity. The Devourer was waking, and the last weapon ever built to stop it waited at the coordinates burning in his vision. For 3 days, the crew traveled through territory no star maps had touched for millennia, uncharted voids, gravitational scars, relics of forgotten battles frozen in the dark like tombstones. Entire fleets, petrified and drifting, their hulls melted by forces nothing in modern physics could explain. It felt like traveling through the graveyard of a fallen pantheon. The closer they came to the dead star, the stranger the space became. Their sensors detected faint vibrations that weren't sound yet felt like whispers. Radiation shimmered not as light, but color patterns that shifted with eerie intelligence. Their instruments behaved as if they were dreaming. Celine said this region of space was called the Silence Rift in ancient texts, where even the concept of normal physics frayed at the edges. Lyra had a simpler description: it feels like the universe is holding its breath. When the dead star finally appeared, it was unlike anything they had seen, cold, black, vast, its surface fractured with colossal chasms that glowed faintly with dim blue fire. It wasn't a star anymore. It was a corpse burned hollow by something that fed on essence, not matter, and orbiting it was the weapon. Arden had expected machinery. A station. A construct. He was wrong. Suspended above the star was a sphere the size of a small moon, composed of concentric layers of translucent material that seemed alive. Veins of energy pulsed through it like the heartbeat of a colossal organism. At certain angles, the sphere looked like glass. At others, like liquid metal. At others still, like a shimmering distortion in reality itself. The ancient empire had not built a weapon, they had grown one. The Asterion scanned it, but every system stuttered, glitched, or shut down. The sphere resisted observation, as if the act of measuring it violated something fundamental. Celine whispered that the weapon wasn't meant to be operated. But awakened, a single thread of energy extended from the sphere toward the ship, as if sensing the descendants of a world too stubborn to die. The humans held their breath as the thread reached the hull, then passed through the metal like smoke. A soft pulse flooded the ship. Lights flickered, engines dimmed, every sound seemed to retreat. Arden felt something touch his consciousness, not invasive, not hostile, but curious, ancient, and vastly intelligent. It sifted through memories like pages, finding the imprint of the Sentinel's message still etched into his mind. The weapon acknowledged it. Then the sphere unfolded, layer by layer peeled back in smooth rotations, exposing a glowing core the size of a cathedral. Inside floated thousands of crystalline spires arranged like a cathedral built by alien mathematicians. Each one hummed with a different tone, frequencies that merged into harmonies that made the entire crew's bones vibrate. The weapon was singing. And the dead star answered. Blue fire erupted from the fractures across its surface, rising like rivers of light toward the sphere. Energy streams intertwined, shifting like braided serpents until they merged into the weapon's core. The sphere's song deepened, resonating with impossible power that rippled through the very fabric of space. Celine paled. This isn't a weapon, she breathed. It's a summoning beacon. A cold realization spread through Arden. The ancient empire hadn't built a device to destroy the Devourer. They had built one to call something even older, something they hoped might stand against it. A new ripple surged through the void, then another, then a distant rumble that wasn't sound but spacetime itself twisting. The crew scrambled to their stations as the sensors jolted into life, displaying distortions emerges at the edge of the system, massive gravitational wells, energy signatures off the scale, shapes forming from swirling matter like titans assembling from cosmic dust. Dozens of colossal silhouettes stepped out of the distortion fields, towering entities made of starfire and geometry, drifting like sentient constellations. They looked nothing like the Sentinel. Nothing like anything known. The beacon had summoned them, and they were watching, judging, deciding. The sphere dimmed slightly, waiting for humanity to speak, not with words, but with action. Arden understood. The ancient empire had not chosen humanity because they were strong. They had chosen them because they were unpredictable, emotional, reckless enough to try the impossible. Yet moral enough to fight for others. Humanity had been chosen to make the plea for salvation. Lyra whispered, trembling, what do we even say to something like that? Arden stared at the starborn titans, felt the weight of billions of human lives behind him, and the unimaginable threat of the Devourer ahead. He stepped forward, heart pounding, knowing the fate of the galaxy hinged on this moment, and in the silence of the void, he made humanity stand. The summoned titans drifted in a vast circle around the dead star, their bodies rippling with shifting constellations. Each movement felt like a celestial event, each pulse of their radiant forms bending gravity as though the universe recognized them as its elder architects. Their presence was awe, raw and crushing. Even through the ship's shielding, humanity felt like a whisper in the presence of storms. Arden stood at the forefront of the bridge, staring into the comms display that wasn't a display anymore. The ship's systems had surrendered control, becoming a conduit. Light, sound, data, none of it behaved like normal. Instead, the Titans communicated using impressions, colors that held meaning, vibrations that carried emotion, flashes of memory that weren't memories but translations of something too vast for nervous systems to parse. The Titans didn't speak, they pressed, and the pressure demanded truth. Arden took a slow breath and let them see, not just words, but the weight of what humanity fought for. He let them feel Earth's oceans and fires, its fragile wars and fragile peace, the laughter of children under artificial domes on Mars, the grief carved into monuments on Luna, the hope embedded in every colony that dared carve life out of cosmic indifference. He let them feel humanity's stubborn refusal to bow to extinction, the collective instinct to rise, rebuild, and protect, even when the odds mocked them. The Titans absorbed all of it, their cosmic bodies shifting through colors that defied spectrum. For a moment, Arden thought they might refuse. Alien power was not benevolent. It was ancient. It was sovereign. It chose its battles the way gravity chose direction, without emotion, without bias. But then one Titan changed, its body dimmed into deep blues and whites, forming the unmistakable shape of a spiral galaxy. From its core, a single pulse of brilliant white light shot outward, a signal that resonated across all the others. One by one, the Titans answered with their own pulses, forming a circle of blinding fire around the dead star. They had accepted the plea. The beacon's core responded immediately. Light exploded outward, pouring into the Titans, merging with them like rivers feeding the ocean. The weapon, the beacon, had not been summoning them as saviors. It had been awakening the oldest alliance the universe had ever known, and now humanity was part of it. The star corpses shook as the dead sun flared awake with ghostly blue fire. The Titans raised their arms, or what passed for them, and the fire coiled into their shapes like serpents of plasma. The message was clear. The Devourer was moving. And so were they. Arden watched through the viewport as reality peeled open. The Titans formed a formation around the Asterion, as if acknowledging humanity's role. A corridor of collapsing starlight spiraled outward, the path to the Devourer's approach vector. Time folded as the fleet accelerated beyond anything humanity had ever achieved. The Asterion trembled, not from strain, but from pure awe as spacetime warped like a curtain being drawn aside. Then the Devourer appeared. It was not a creature, it was not a machine, it was a force, like a black hole wrapped in wings of shattered light, a living storm of gravity and hunger. Worlds it consumed left faint afterimages swirling around it, echoes of civilization swallowed whole. It saw the Titans. It saw the beacon's fire. It saw humanity's tiny ship standing defiantly at their center. It screamed, an impossible vibration that shook thought itself. The Titans charged, and reality collapsed. The clash was not a battle in the way humanity understood. It was the collision of fundamental forces, the Devourer tearing space like cloth. The Titans weaving it back together with brilliant arcs of starlight. Gravity bent, inverted, shattered, then reformed. Time rippled like water struck by stones. Arden felt the ship drift in and out of momentary futures and pasts, catching glimpses of outcomes that might have been or might still come. The Asterion's hull groaned like it was singing an ancient lament. Lyra and Selene clung to their consoles, stabilizing what little control remained. Arden could barely breathe under the weight of the forces tearing the cosmos apart outside, yet humanity's ship stayed intact. The beacon defended them. The Titans shielded them. For the first time in recorded history, humanity stood at the center of a cosmic war they had no right to survive. The Devourer pushed back, expanding its wings of inverted matter, trying to consume the Titans one by one. Whole sections of space blinked out as it fed. The Titans responded by fusing their energy together, forming a lattice of light that wrapped the Devourer like a cage made of supernovae. The weapon pulsed again, its final directive unleashed. The dead star beneath them rippled. All at once, the star collapsed into a singularity, a controlled collapse, a trap. The Devourer thrashed in fury, its wings cracking, its cosmic hunger turning frantic. The Titans tightened the lattice, forcing the monstrosity toward the forming singularity. The Asterion drifted farther back, protected by a shield of shimmering energy the beacon projected around it. Arden felt the moment the Devourer realized it had been outmaneuvered, not by Titans, not by an ancient empire, but by a species reckless enough to awaken forces forgotten by time. Humanity had set the trap, humanity had made the plea, humanity had tipped the scales. With a final roar of collapsing reality, the Devourer was pulled into the singularity's heart, where its existence folded into nothing. Silence fell, then the singularity evaporated, leaving only the quiet glow of a newborn star. Bright, young, hopeful, the Titans stood in stillness, their constellation bodies shimmering like proud guardians. They turned toward the Asterion one last time, and Arden felt a gentle pressure of acknowledgement. And farewell. One by one, they stepped back into the dimensional veil and vanished. The beacon sphere dimmed and folded back into its dormant form, awaiting another age, another plea. Humanity had survived, and the galaxy had witnessed who they truly were. As the Asterion drifted toward the newborn star's warm light, Arden whispered the final line, words meant for the cosmos itself.